To another episode of the Forever Bristol City podcast. It was a tale of the unexpected yesterday because City came back from their trip up to Teesside with an unexpected result in the light of what had gone before. The final score, it finished Borough 1, City 1. I'm delighted today to be joined by Tom from the Robin's Nest, Les, who's been on many times over the past few years, and also Adam, his first appearance in the match day, the pod day squad for a long time. He was way back there in the Dean Holden days. But that's one thing you can't accuse me of doing is spend. Well, I don't pay these guys anything, obviously, but I am expanding my squad and I'm gearing up for promotion to what God only knows. As we normally do, start off, I'll come to you first, Les. Thoughts at 5-5, probably maybe a little bit different to how they were looking at about 10-5.
I thought the first 65 minutes we were excellent. I thought we were compact. I thought we were resilient. I thought we restricted Borough to half chances. And then we had that wobble for about 15 minutes where Borough could have had 3 or 4. But when you're only one up, you always run the risk of getting done at the end, and that's what happened. So did we deserve a point? I mean, they did miss some big chances, but we got one. And hopefully we've got a little bit of luck now and we're going to build some confidence and maybe we can go on a little run.
Okay, Tom, what were your thoughts? Maybe different, you were writing a different end piece and then the unthinkable happened.
I think that went a lot better than a lot of us thought it would go yesterday. I mean, I was dreading the outcome of that with what could have happened if he got beaten badly. And I was really pleased. Obviously, they missed their chances. I think Adam said this before we started the live stream, but it was nice for the shoe to be on the other foot of taking a chance at the end of the game to nick a point for a change.
And Adam, what were your thoughts? Did you think the worst before it kicked off at 12:30 that we're going to get, I won't say a hiding, but probably a pointless trip up there?
Yeah. I got to be honest. I was delighted with the point in the end, given how the game went. I would agree with Les in the fact that we were very compact throughout. I think excellence probably a little bit of a stretch. I think first 15 we looked a little bit nervy. I think the players were trying to adjust to, I guess, the new way or for that match day that Struber was trying to set us out. But very, very compact. We defended well, defended as a team. I think first half in particular, Armstrong and Reece, it was just coming straight back. That was the problem. I think for all the good defensive play, a better side probably would have give us more problems on Saturday, but ultimately, as we said, this is the Championship. Great to come away from it with a point when, Borough should have finished us off. But it was a good enough display. Were we worth the point? I'm not sure, but we've played better and lost. So I think all in all, a good point. And as I said before we came on, the pleasing aspect for me was the fact that the players still seem very much behind Struber. So it's a big positive to take from me.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is, I mean, if you look at the joy on their faces and the togetherness when the ball went in, it was akin to me, a bit like when we scored one of the goals at Norwich. And I was saying, Zach, I think Anis Mehmeti always wanted to get away from here for whatever reason, but Zach was committed. And I can remember his look on the final whistle. You can't... what sort of judge of character am I to say this with any real substance? But you can tell when players have got it and they want to do it. And I think Knight, I mean, he was getting a few criticisms from a few comments I saw on the forum that he started to turn into an arm-waving person. But I think his comment in the press this week that the players after Leicester, he almost called them together and they took a good look at themselves. And I think this thing about losing the likes of Viner and Mehmeti out the dressing room or what have you, they're big people in those environments, and it's bound to have an effect. And that doesn't mean they're wallflowers wilting at something like that, but it is what it is. Let's get into the team selection. Les, do you subscribe to the view that it probably wasn't a bad thing for us that Borges and Bergzorg didn't feature in the matchday 20 at all?
Well, Bergzorg's done nothing, has he? I think Borges has been inconsistent. His form seems to have dropped off since Mehmeti's left. Was it a good thing? Well, I think probably not ultimately, because you want that strength on the bench to come on. But Struber didn't really have a huge amount of options, and he obviously put Knight in at centre-back, which is a position he's not familiar with. he obviously felt it needed to happen because we were short at the back. But ultimately, it worked because we got a point.
Yeah. Tom, playing two up front. I mean, as I think it was Adam said earlier, the ball kept coming back because neither of them offered a great deal. I thought yesterday, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon, but I thought Armstrong was particularly poor yesterday. But what did you think of that lineup when you saw it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone had Jason Knight playing as in the middle of a back three against Borough away on their bingo card at the start of the season. But I think it was a decent lineup, really. I think Struber was saying, wasn't he, that Horvat picked up a knock, whether it was in the last game or in training, which probably meant we couldn't play the 2-10, so had to go two up top. And yeah, I think you're right about Reece and Armstrong. I thought Reece had a better game than Armstrong, but neither of them were really particularly good outlets yesterday. I didn't think.
That's a very low bar. He had a better game than Armstrong. I mean, that's so far it's almost underground, that bar. Adam, with the lineup, Struber said at the start of the season, don't want to pay square pegs in round holes, and playing McCrory. I know he played there under Manning as well on the left. But he could have gone to a flat back four with what he had, couldn't he? Were you surprised as to what the shape of the team looked like when they took the field? Because there's still permutations when we were thinking what it would look like.
Yeah, I struck sort of first 5 minutes. I was still trying to work out what we were doing, but obviously his options were limited yesterday. I wouldn't have gone with Knight in at centre half. I'll be completely honest, but I thought it was a captain's display yesterday. He had to completely change his game. But who would have thought you need a squad, or should we say a roster, over 46 games, Dave? Who would have thought it? Maybe we should start listening to the experts. I mean, how long has pretty much since he's got through the door, Struber's been banging on about the importance of having a squad. Pretty much every other club in the Championship have got it. You're going to get injuries. We've also got players in the squad that are just quite simply not going to be capable of playing 46 games. So, unfortunately, I feel as if though a day like yesterday was always going to come, but thankfully we managed to get a point. I don't think he could have done much else in terms of the 11. I mean, we can talk about formations and where players play all day long, but in terms of what he had, especially with Horvat picking up a knock, I think we were limited. I understand why he went with two up front. I mean, you probably have to get me off my soapbox if we're going to talk about Armstrong much longer, because I just think him and Reece were poor. But I understand why he played Armstrong with his pace to sort of try and get us up the pitch or break when we had the ball. But his decision making was appalling. But Reece didn't help because his touch was shocking, and his link up play just wasn't there that first half yesterday.
No, it was disappointing from that perspective. Les, we haven't spoken recently. I don't think since Morsy came on board, or maybe just once. When we got Morsy in, that looked an astute signing insofar as he's 34, his legs are probably gone, but captain of Ipswich in their promotion year, 33 games in the Prem, and you're thinking, well, and at that time, we were minimal number of points away from the playoffs, if not in them. How have you assessed Sam Morsy's performances to date and yesterday?
Well, we needed an experienced body. We needed a centre midfielder at the time because we had a lot of injuries. So I had no issue with us bringing him in. I thought it was quite a sensible signing. I think he's a perfect example of someone who's aging and his legs are slowly going. So for me, I think he's a short-term fix. I think he's done okay. And I think I can't really say anything worse, say anything better. I think he's just been okay. But I think, was he a free signing? I'm assuming he was free.
OC out of contract.
He's been on the pitch when, he hasn't had any injury issues while he's been there. So he's kind of fitted a gap that needed filling. And he'll be here till the end of the season, and then he'll go. So I think he's done okay. He's been solid enough.
He's done okay. Tom, since we're talking about Morsy, I'll ask you the same question. He's okay, isn't he? He's not lifted us in any particular way, and he's just another player in through the door, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's done kind of as expected, really. And I think the signing really makes sense if your future actions in the transfer window are ones that are pointing towards promotion, right? I think he complements a promotion-chasing team really nicely. And I'm sure it's not gone as expected for him. I'd imagine he thought we'd have kicked on in January and really been challenging. So I'm sure he's been quite disappointed by how it's turned out for the club as a whole after it. But he's done as expected, I think, to be honest.
Yeah. Would you concur with that view, Adam? He's sort of done, maybe he didn't expect to get as many minutes as he did. And was he brought in to be a presence in the dressing room with that experience? Although it's all gone wrong, hasn't it, in terms of that playoff challenge? Not through any fault of his, I hasten to add.
No, I think he was always going to be a useful signing. I think the problem with Morsy is he's a little bit out of kilter with the way we were playing at the time. He likes to get on the ball. He slows things down. He's a bit more of a quarterback type, sort of deep holding midfielder, and we don't really play that way. Like the other players that we've got are a bit more all action. Randall and Knight being the obvious examples, but it's good to have a squad and have someone that can do something different. But I think he's probably better as a squad player. As Tom said, he probably did envisage coming on and help kicking us on. But it's not happened, and I think, as Les said, unfortunately, in the way Struber wants to play, Morsy's legs have probably given up on him a little bit, so he's not going to be quite as effective if we asked him to do that. But funnily enough, I thought he was probably our best player against Leicester in the week, even though that was quite a low bar.
Yeah, no, that's true. Shout out for all the mums today, because it's Mother's Day. We're recording this on Sunday, Mother's Day, Sunday the 15th of March. So that's to mums everywhere. And if you've not got a mum anymore, I'm sure you remember them on this day. So that's City fans and everybody who listens to FBC. Happy Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to any mums that are watching or listening to this. Let's get into the action. Les, he's a key player for them, isn't he? That Hayden Hackney, and the first chance he puts in across, Tommy Conway heads it wide. That was a chance. And Tommy, he's had an okay season for them, but do you think if he was in our side, we'd be that much better? I guess the answer to that has to be yes, doesn't it? But it was first chance for them.
Well, I think Hackney's a very good player. I remember when he came with them to Ashton Gate earlier in the season, I thought he was the best player on the pitch by a mile, and he dictates everything for them. I think for Conway at Borough, I get the impression he plays a bit deeper than he did for us, where he was obviously a striker. And would we be better? Well, yeah, we would be better with him, because not only would he get goals, I think he'd make Reece better as well, because I think Reece is best in the two. And the problem is, when he has played in the two this season, he's been playing with Armstrong, who obviously is very difficult to play with. He's got no footballing intelligence. And the header, I mean, it was a good chance. It was slightly on the angle. I think Conway thought he was going to get absolutely clattered. I wouldn't call it a nailed-on chance compared to some of the ones he had later in the game, but he probably should have done slightly better with it.
Tom, that early chance, and Tommy Conway, he doesn't manage to get one over on us yet, and we do seem to have the Indian sign over Borough in general, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I think I agree absolutely with what Les said. Really, it wasn't. I don't think it was an absolute clear cut chance. It was quite a difficult one, and yeah, just on a whole, I'd like to think the club regret what they did with Tommy Conway, because if he was in this squad partnering Emil Reece right now, I think we'd be on the money with our two strikers. Really.
Oh God, yeah, that would be
a lot better.
Yeah, that would be a good combination. I guess that, again, doesn't matter what we think, but, whets the appetite, Adam, thinking of having Conway alongside a decent striker, because he never really had a proper partner up front, did he? Chris Martin, I guess. But what were your thoughts on that chance, and indeed Conway, if he was still with us?
Yeah, I'm with Les. I think it was a chance that he probably should have done better with, but equally it wasn't gilt edged for me. I think if anything, he probably tries too hard against us. It just doesn't seem to come off for him, which is pleasing. I actually thought when we played them down our place, he was their best player, along with Hackney. But yeah, it didn't really happen for him yesterday, which is good. But having said that, I would have him over what we've got. I think this season, as you said, to think what could have been, or what he would be like alongside someone like Reece. It's a shame, because even though I think he divides opinion amongst the Borough fans, there's still a good player in there. As much as I dislike him.
Good Bristol boy. It was tense. I thought there was a tense atmosphere at the Riverside yesterday on the part of their fans because they'd lost 1-0 at home to Charlton. And they probably were expecting to win, but we didn't have any possession of note. In fact, I recall the commentator saying this because I've written it down. Our first decent possession came on 15 minutes, Les, when was it Pring put in a cross? But they had us penned back without really testing us, didn't they?
I think the first 10 minutes we struggled a bit, and I think we were trying to work out, with players out of position, working out what their roles were. But when you're not playing well, you're going to get that in games. You just need to try and hold on and hold out. And because we were so compact, it restricted them to very little chances. I thought we were most at risk when they kind of got the ball out wide and whipped it in, because we were so deep at times that it can become pinball and they can knock it in. But we got through that first 15 minutes. Sometimes you just need to survive it, get through it. And we did that. But like you said, we offered very little threat going forward. But we held out, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
And Adam, in terms of threat, we were holding, we were playing a game like we've not seen under Struber before, which was this low block and everybody doing their job. I mean, Hackney set up another chance. I think Ayling got on the end of it, and then McGree, he shot through a crowd. That was an easy save for Struber, that one. But, they weren't, certainly in that opening 45, it was pretty dull stuff for them. But good to see Luke Ayling still playing. He's still got something to offer, even at this level, hasn't he, Adam?
Yeah, even though I would have put him in the same bracket as Morsy, in that I thought his legs had gone, but he seems to have come again this season. I don't know if Boro's style suits him a little bit more, but yeah, I thought they were sort of about 20 minutes in. I thought Boro were becoming quite frustrated. We were containing them really, really well, and they looked a little bit out of ideas. I think they have struggled across the course of the season against sides that do play with that low block. I do think they struggle to break them down a bit like we have at home before as well. So we were in we didn't, even though they created a few chances first half, we contained them well. As we said, though, it was just breaking it down every time it went forward.
Yeah. Tom, do you remember Ayling from his time playing for us, or is that before your time?
It was a little bit during my time, but he's had a very good career, hasn't he? He did a good stint for Leeds in the Premier League as well, didn't he? Yeah, he's a good player. I think, yeah, he's a good player.
Ironic that it came, our match against them, the week of Cheltenham Festival, because this was in the days of the wokey Bristol City, that I always maintained that Luke Ayling left the club because he was sort of caught front and centre of that picture of what was affectionately known as Pissgate, when he was in one of the boxes at Cheltenham, and it wasn't champagne that was being chucked on the crowd below. But, I'd like to have seen Ayling play most of those years at right back for us rather than Leeds. And, of course, we all remember, I'm sure all of us here, do you remember when we had that guy Tavernier, not to be confused with, I think, the Borough player, but James Tavernier? What a bloody good career he's had north of the border. I would imagine he's got legend status up there, but there we go. So half-time came and went. Pring picked up, I think it was the first yellow on 42 minutes, Pring. Let's talk about bookings. 5 bookings, Pring, Ela, Twine, Morsy and Armstrong. They're all silly ones, really. It wasn't a dirty game by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but I don't think half of them were bookings, though. That's the point. I mean, I think the Pring one was very, very harsh. I mean, he caught him slightly late, but it wasn't reckless or anything like that. So I'm not sure what the ref was thinking. And the Armstrong one, he's nudged into the guy who's gone flying. Granted, Armstrong's probably twice his size. So I thought some of them were harsh. I think there were comments about, or some of the players were making comments like Morsy was obviously chirping away, which is why he got booked, I think.
Yeah.
That might have been the same with Ela as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, in fact, Ela was the first one booked on 35 by referee Stephen Martin. Not a funny man by any stretch of the imagination. But Tom, did you think the bookings were, it was not dirty, but maybe it was us. I saw a couple of times our players were crowding round the referee and giving him some stick, which is something that we have wanted to see our players doing because other clubs certainly do it, put them under pressure.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Les that the ref was a bit harsh on them, but I don't think any of them were like good bookings, right? Like bringing a player down when they've got a good chance of making something, stuff like that. I don't necessarily think any of them were good bookings, if you like. I think Ayla was getting into it with Conway a little bit, wasn't he, in the first half? So maybe he was mouthing at the ref, and that got him booked in the end. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, you can't really say many of them were good bookings, really.
Yeah, no, Jacob FX size said on the text feed all the yellows were soft, and I'm inclined to agree with him. But start of the second half, a couple of early incidents. Les Reese, chance on 50 minutes. He created some space. Should have put that one away and given us the lead 5 minutes after the restart.
I mean, I think saying he should have put it away is slightly harsh. He was about 20 yards out and he'd gone on a good run and pulled away from the defender. He didn't connect with it as well as he would have liked, but I think it was a pretty good effort. It was a good counter-attack. It's one of those ones with Reese, with him, you don't know if he's going to hit the corner flag. We don't know whether he's going to hit the top corner. Do you know what I mean? But it was a half chance at best, in my opinion.
Yeah. Adam, should he have done better?
Yeah, I think he should have. Should he have scored? I'm not sure, but I think he'd done the hard work. That's the thing. He managed to carry it far enough. It's a good run, but it looked like he just snatched at the shot in the end. And as Les said, sometimes you don't know with Reese. But I think given that he'd done so well to get himself in that situation, I think you got to at least work the keeper from there.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's not the easiest of chances, but I guess, yeah, he'd be wanting to put that on target, I think, with the limited chances we had before that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Who was it? Coventry last week had a bloke sent off, didn't they, for pulling down Reese? And I always feel with Reese when he breaks from the halfway line that, he's just not got the pace that you need to do that yellow card, because I think he does run out of steam, but he's got in a double figure, so that's the best I could ask for. 55 minutes, Les. Vitek. Fabulous double save, or was it even a triple? Got down there, keeps us in the game. What a goalkeeper. He's had a few little dodgy moments, some would say, since the turn of the year, but if you're watching that, you're thinking, I want him as my keeper next season, and we certainly would, wouldn't we?
I mean, he's the best keeper that I've seen at Ashton Gate for us in my lifetime. It's a powerful shot. He obviously makes a mess of the initial save because he doesn't keep the ball, but the way he responds, and it isn't a case of the ball hitting him. Do you know what I mean? He really spreads his body and his legs, and then to get up as quickly as he did, to then gutter the ball. I mean, the reaction after the initial save is just brilliant. I mean, Brown on the rebound, he shouldn't have given him a chance. I mean, he's 6 yards out. He hasn't got anyone around him. So in that sense, we got fortunate. But, we're 14th in the league, and we've talked about how brilliant Vitek's been for the vast majority of the season. And the worry for me is, where would we be in the table if we hadn't had
with Joanna in goal? Exactly. Yeah. Daddy Ross official said Vitek won't be here next season. Adam, we haven't spoken to you this season, and as I said at the start, good to have you back after a few years. He's been some player for us, and if he did stay another season with us, he's gonna start every game, which surely is better than being a bench player for a lower Premier club, or even a bench player for United, maybe playing in Carabao Cup games, which is about 3 or 4. What do you think of those saves yesterday and Vitek overall?
Oh, he's been brilliant, Dave. I'm with Les. He's definitely one of, if not the best keeper I've seen at City in my time. I thought recently he's sort of not been himself. He's been a little bit shaky, but he was back to his best yesterday. And throughout the game, he was just completely assured, made some great saves. He was coming for crosses, taking a little bit of the pressure off when we needed him to. And yeah, we got fortunate with some of their finishing was poor, but he was back to his best. I'd love him to be here next year, but I just don't see it. I'm not sure he's for as good as he's been for us. I'm not sure he's would be good enough to go in at United as their backup. I just don't see him going somewhere. I'd say it's probably more likely that one of the clubs going up from our league will look to maybe try and loan him. I think that's probably where he's more likely to end up next year, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to keep him.
Yeah, Tom, he's only 22, which is a decent age for an outfield player, but as a baby in terms of goalkeeping terms, he seems a big character as well. And those saves, that was, he's done that several times this season, shown that ability for a big man to get down really low, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's just got all the fundamental attributes of a really top keeper, hasn't he? Like, he's going to have a long career in the top European leagues wherever he wants to play, really. And I think whether he stays with us or wherever he goes next season is entirely up to him, really. And he's probably going to make the best move for his career, whether that be a Premier League loan or a top European league loan. I don't know, but I'd say staying with us, he could probably, in the nicest way possible for City, could probably do a bit better, to be honest now.
Yeah, and well, it was interesting. Last week we were saying Coventry losing Rushworth back to Brighton, where he could be their first choice, and we didn't want to give him away. But I was chatting to the Coventry lads on the podcast, and I said you could do a lot worse, and you get somebody like him. And that's as somebody else has said on here, Daddy Ross again has said, if he goes to Southampton, if they get up, still a big ask for the Saints or Coventry, they're going up. He'd be a starter for them without question. We said earlier on in the podcast that Middlesbrough were getting on top, but we were resilient at the back. Target crossed for Brown to head straight at Vitek. I mean, he was in the right place, so showed steady hands, but it was straight at him. Let's talk about the goal. By that time, they brought on Castledine, a player that, if we were ambitious, we could have gone for him in the summer. They signed him. We got Bergzorg. Says it all about our recruitment department, doesn't it? For Dave Tubby's benefit, recruitment must fall. No, Tinian must fall. How did you see the goal, Les? It was pretty pants, really, wasn't it? Parting like the Red Sea.
Yeah, well, gotta say, I'm not convinced that Tinian should fall, actually. I think I don't necessarily share that mindset that he's the root of all problems. I think we have an owner who's the problem, and that puts recruitment in a very difficult position. But as for the goal, the game just started to open up a bit. And as good as Pring was in the first half, second half he was absolutely all over the place. And he's kind of come out, and then Knight's moved across, and then Ehlers just rushed straight across, and neglected his man in the middle. And there's a guy there with all the space in the world and all the time in the world. So I think it was probably a catalogue of errors from our defence that led to players being out of position. And you can't afford to do that, really, when you've spent 65 minutes doing such a good, solid defensive display, but ultimately parking the bus.
Adam, the goal, there were some big spaces there. Who was meant to be marking Castledine? They brought on Sredek, who set up the pass for Hackney to cross. He thundered the ball in Castledine. Preventable goal, not from the goalkeeper's perspective, because it just had the power. It went in off the underside of the bar. But did you think, oh my God, here we go, we've put in a good hour, and now we're going to maybe concede too late?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said we could come and get a point off the back of that as soon as that goal went in. It was too easy for them. For all the good work we'd done up until that point, there was far too much space, and obviously he's tucked it away well in the end. But it was too easy, way too easy.
Tom, the goal, our defence was non-existent as a unit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like towards that time in a game when you're playing with a low block, the game can open up for the opposition. And I think they'd made a couple of changes in that time as well, hadn't they? That might be a talking point, actually. Maybe, I don't know if we could have made some substitutions a little bit earlier than we did yesterday. That might be a conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at the subs because he did Sam on 68 for Armstrong. He could have come on at half-time. And then Bird didn't come on until 78, and Horvath. He only used 3 yesterday, actually, looking at this. Interesting.
There wasn't much on the bench yesterday, to be fair.
Well, and that says it all. There wasn't much on the bench in the sense that George Earthy, that does seem to have been a total waste of a wage, bringing him in. But no, on the bench, as you say, was it Louis Derrick, Seb Naylor, not really played, Thelwell, and Azendu. Maybe some of these youngsters might get some minutes if we're 3-0 up in any game between now and the end of the season. So after the goal, the pressure was starting to mount. Strelec had a shot that rolled along the 6-yard line. Vitek saved from Morris. The bit that made me laugh was Pring doing an imitation of a flying elephant. I mean, Cam's, he's not been great of late, and he's not played. What is Cam's best position?
His best position is a left back or a left wing back. And I actually thought first half he was excellent. I mean, I thought he showed a real fight. His positional sense was good. He was decent enough on the ball, but second half he was all over the place. If you look at the header that Brown had, he's come rushing out and got completely caught underneath the ball. And obviously that chance was Strelec, which was a good save, but he should have buried. He's just completely misjudged the pace of the ball. And I think that's what he struggles with. These balls that come in, whether it's crosses or like the one for Strelec, he struggles to read them. He did the same against Millwall when they went 1-0 up at the Den, when he got caught out at the back post. I think he's a wing back. He's a left back. He's obviously a square peg in a round hole, but I thought first half he was very good, and then second half his limitations in that position were pretty obvious.
What did you think of it? It was not a good look, was it? Where he got his body position all wrong on the line against Port Vale in the goal that was conceded there, Adam, didn't he? But I mean, it didn't result in a goal. But Strelec would be disappointed that he didn't finish off after presented with a chance.
Yeah, he lost complete flight of the ball, didn't he? Really, and going back to the Port Vale one, Dave, I look at it again. I don't know why he didn't try and attack that with his right foot. I don't know what he was trying to achieve, but anyway, yeah, he lost the flight of the ball yesterday. I guess from a striker's point of view, it was one of those where he had too much time, and Vitek made himself big and made a good save. But yeah, I'm not sure with what Les said about him being a wing back. I thought that at the start of the season, but my concern with Pring is I don't think he's careful. He's not quite good enough on the ball. If you look at him and Borge, they're chalk and cheese on the ball, and I guess it's good to have a bit of variation, but I always, up until the last couple of weeks, saw Pring as probably a better option as a backup for Atkinson on the left of a back three. But now I'm not so sure. He seems to have lost his way a bit, does Pringy?
Tom, I've been saying on the pods, I know you listen, for a few weeks now, that Pring and Tanner, for that matter, they both signed their contracts. They're not going to get any higher than what we are at the moment. And Pring, do you think he's regressed as a player? Is he still looks as though he could do with shedding a few pounds? Let's put it like that. He's not. We don't see those. You're not going to get bursts of energy down the line if you're playing as a left centre back. But he's not the player that West Ham was sniffing around after we'd knocked them out of the cup 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, in seasons gone by, I think he's physically dominated most of the opponents that he came up against. I mean, he was of interest to West Ham because he just had, it was Soufal, wasn't it, the West Ham right back that he completely dominated in those 2 games in the FA Cup, like a Premier League level fullback. And I don't know what the nature of his injury was that I think he picked it up in pre-season or something like that, didn't he? And he was out until sort of the winter time. I don't know the nature of that injury and how hard the rehab has been, but he's not been the same player of previous seasons, has he? For whatever reason.
Yeah, no, Darm's picked up. Pring looks overweight to me. We don't want to be fattest, but he says nowhere. That's me saying that. Nowhere near as that. Let's go.
I think he has put on weight, but I don't think it's necessarily fat. I think he's put on a load of muscle. And I remember Beckham in the late 90s, well, it'd be later than that, probably early 2000s, had a similar problem in that he was starting to get injuries, and his game was slowly, not what it was. And a lot of people put it down to the fact that they put on weight, and that doesn't necessarily mean fat. He's put on a lot of muscle, and that in itself changes the way you play because your body's changing.
No, that's true. That's true. No, I can concur with that. Just after that miss of Strelec, I think the resulting corner, Ayling was there with a header just wide, and that was a bloody good header from a defender moving up and just going wide of the post. Project West 3570 says here, Tom, you need 5 decent centre backs with decent availability records if we want to persist with that. Now, I would say with limited resources, that's great. That's a utopian world. But, you know, sometimes you got to say, and look, we've been hit by injuries, ridiculous number of players out in that position, exceptional number of players in that particular position. But if I'm the director of football, no, I don't want to be the director of football. I'm saying, look, we can't afford 5 decent proper centre backs, but we've got enough players in the squad that on those occasions when you need to fall back, change the formation, play 4 at the back. Yeah, what do you say to that sentiment of, you know, sometimes you got to improvise a little bit?
Well, I think we saw improvisation and 4 at the back with the players available against Port Vale, didn't we? And that didn't work. So I think Struber's probably always going to have that in the back of his mind as well. And I feel really sorry for Struber with this defender situation, to be honest, because it's been spoken about in previous podcasts. I just don't know what more he could do with the tools he's had available defensively. I don't know. You can't. I know they did well yesterday, and I think we actually got a bit fortunate with the fact that Borough, they're not the lineup they put out wasn't particularly physical. They didn't really have any big men in there that could really challenge our players in the air. I think maybe that was a bit kind to us, but I don't know what more he can do with the defenders he's got available, really. I'll be totally honest.
Yeah. Adam, Tommy Horvath came on as a sub, had a free kick, Pring with a header, just eluded McCrory. What I've seen of Horvath so far, that looks a good signing. And I won't give recruitment credit for that. They obviously signed things off, but that must have come from the mind of Gerhard, mustn't it? Yeah, but your thoughts on Horvath's contribution so far? And he's as good with a dead ball as Mehmeti, in my view.
He looks like he'll be
as Twine even.
Yeah. Well, both. Like he looks like he'll be a really good signing for us. So it's just a shame he come a little later into the January window, because I do think he could have had quite a big impact. As Struber said, he's got to manage minutes with the players, and we go back to, I think you said about having 5 centre halves. For me, I think you need 6. You need 6 centre halves if you're going to play a back 3, which Struber's done all season. And I know Les said the buck stops with Lansdowne, and it does, but there's a lot to be said for the recruitment. And I know you've touched on it on previous podcasts, but you know, Struber's played with a back 3 all season. So you know, what are this second to none rather recruitment team doing? We're washed up with 6 number 10s, no centre halves. We signed a centre half that hasn't played since September in Ayla, who looks great, but it was on the last day of the window. It's all out of kilter. It just looks so disjointed to me. And going back to Horvath, without meaning to go off on a tangent, sorry, Dave, I think he will be a good player, but at the same time, you know, you need that quality and that strength in depth to be allowed to rest him and get the best out of him. And it was a great delivery for the Randall header yesterday, which I'm sure we'll come to. But yeah, we definitely. We need to look after him, and I think he will be a good signing, particularly when he's had a full season under his belt in English football.
Yeah. Les, your thoughts on Horvath? He's similar build to Mehmeti, isn't he? You know, just the way he prances around out there, and you know, I like what I see so far.
Well, I mean, I think he can cross a ball for a start. I think his corners and his delivery from free kicks is better than Twine's. And the benefit of getting him in now is obviously he's got a lot of time to bed in along with Ela, which means come next season he'll have a better understanding of Struber's style of football, the players he's playing with. He doesn't look like a huge goal-scoring threat at the moment, but in terms of his creativity and his ability on the ball, I think he looks like he's going to be a very good signing for us.
Tom, your thoughts on him, and I'm going to ask you about Ela as well and the other guys as well. But thoughts on Horvath?
Yeah, I think he looks a real player, doesn't he? The only thing is, I wish he shoot a little bit more. I don't think he necessarily had many shoot. Well, he didn't have any minutes really against Middlesbrough, but in games gone by, I can remember I wish he took, He shot a little bit more, but I think, his best attribute, probably as Les said, is his crossing, really. It's really refreshing to have a left-footed player that can cross a ball like that. And I think one of our, many weaknesses, I think, at parts this season has been set-piece delivery from, like, crossing positions. And he's a player that really fixes that, I think. As Les said, again, Twine, he's one of the best, like, direct free kick takers from scoring positions genuinely in the world. But from crossing, he's not great at times. And I think Horvath completely fixes that.
Yeah, there's a thread running on the forum. Is it time we started talking about Ela? When Ela came here, he was probably coming in to be a good squad player, and I think he's done okay out for anything. I'll stick with you, Tom, on Ela. What do you think of him?
Genuinely been pretty impressed, to be honest. I think it's very harsh if people are out there. Well, I haven't read that. I don't really go on OTIP too much to check the comments. But, I mean, you put yourself in his position. He's a really young lad. He's left the US to move to a new city, a new club. He's immediately had to take the reins as our leading centre-back. I think he's done pretty well. I don't think he necessarily plays like a 6'5", I think, isn't he? He's not a physically dominant centre-half, but he's got some height about him. And I think he's done pretty well, all things considered, to be honest. And I think he can use this season to grow and be a decent championship centre half next season, I think. That would be my thoughts.
Adam, good signing, and another one that it looks like it's got Struber's paw prints all over it, doesn't it?
Yeah, he does. I agree with Tom. I think he doesn't carry himself like he's a sort of, Aidan Flint type centre half. He's good on the ball. He reads the game well. I think as well, we've got a feel for him because he's been basically the mainstay in amongst the defence since he's arrived. It's constantly changing. So that wouldn't have helped him adapt to a style. And I'm sure he didn't enjoy Port Vale much. Don't get much of that in the MLS. But no, he does look like he'll be a really good player. And I think, as you said, that's one that Struber's identified. The only disappointing thing with, and I know Dave touched on it in previous podcasts, that he came on the last day of the window. So, yeah, but he does look like he'll be a really big signing for us.
Yeah, Les, I guess, there's more. Well, I can't think of a real negative on him because he's been dropped right in at the deep end. He hadn't played a competitive game for 4 months, and he's come into a side that's rocked by injuries. But he's a good one to have as a club in the bag next season, isn't he? To use a Lee Johnsonism.
Well, I think he's like a ball-playing centre-back. He's very good with it at his feet. He's good at bringing it out. He's a good passer of the ball. He reminds me of Viner in a way in that he tries to pass through the lines into midfield. Like, as has already been said, he's not a dominant centre-back. So, I mean, I remember against Blackburn, he was getting pinned up by the little Japanese striker and he was struggling with him. But when we got a more fit centre-backs, you've got the likes of Atkinson and Dickey to boss those physical duels. So I think starting next season, assuming in a back three, he's the obvious person to be on the right side of that three. And I think he's done very well so far.
It's interesting, I can remember our great illustrious owner, our supreme leader, let's call him that, at a Senior Reds luncheon last year was saying about we don't want to collect players. And Tom, okay, you're always going to be rocked by injuries, but if you think come first weekend in August, whenever the season kicks off next season, we're going to have Ela. We're going to have Rob Atkinson back. We're going to have Rob Dickey. We're going to have Rob Atkinson. We got Jamie Knight-LaBelle to come back. Have I said Ela as well? We got Tanner. I mean, that is one position. Well, we do not need any more bods in the door now, do we? From that central, and there's James Campbell Slowey as another youngster. So there's two pathway players that are waiting in the wings, and if you throw Tanner in there, we've got strength in numbers, haven't we?
In terms of numbers, yes, but it's just whether you're of the opinion that group of players is good enough to get you promoted, really. Whether that strength in depth, the drop off when the substitute players have to come in is acceptable to get playoffs or promoted, really. I think that's the question you asked.
So do you not think then, Tom, that a back three of assuming he's fit, McNally, Atkinson, and Dickey is good enough?
Yeah, but it's the depth. I think starting 11 wise will be again pretty good. Well, up there next season in terms of quality, but it's the second fiddle players you've got. For me, like for a 46 game season, you almost don't really have first teamers and backups. You have a group of sort of, I don't know, 15, 16 players that are as good as each other, and you can swap them in and out. I think that's what we've seen from a number of the top teams in the championship this season. Really, some of them, I'm not an expert on championship football, but some of them you could probably say arguably don't have a best 11 at times.
Yeah. Let's change the subject because obviously there's a highlight to come in a moment. Les, there was one situation in the end, towards the end, before the equaliser, where Pring and McCrory both went for the same ball, and you could see words were had. And I think one of you alluded to the fact that earlier on in the game, or maybe it was a text feed, Ela and McCrory were having words. Do you think that shows the commitment of the players, that they're calling each other out for mix-ups and following instructions?
Possibly. I mean, it can mean two things, can't it? It can mean they're really fighting for it and they're annoyed with each other because they really want to get back into this game. Or you could argue the fact that the wheels are coming off. But the fact that we got an equaliser, everyone assumes that it's fight and a real desire to fight for the badge, But it was just poor play, wasn't it? And it happened twice. It happened later on in the game as well, where they both miscommunicated with each other, but it's a minor thing, isn't it? It's a minor thing.
All right. Let's talk about the goal then. Adam, you first. To use what Keith Millen said on the opening game of the season, that Steve Coppell should have been in charge, and Keith Millen's first game in charge was a 0-3 reverse to Millwall. In fact, no, Steve Coppell was in charge for that game, but Millen did the press conference. Didn't see that coming. The goal. Didn't see that coming, but what a cracker, and what a role Vitek played in that as well. He did a lot better than Pickford did for Everton yesterday. But we scored. I mean, what a goal!
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Dave. I didn't see that one come in. I thought the chance or half chance we had just before when it flashed past the post, McCrory at the back post, I thought we missed our moment. Hell of a delivery from Horvat, absolutely first class. But as you say, with Vitek taking potential, I think it may have been two defenders out the way, and great header from Randall, absolutely brilliant execution. And I think, we didn't see it come in, but you could see how how happy the players were, and they'd obviously worked really, really hard to stay in the game. And it was, like as we said before, nice for the boot to be on the other foot for a change. So, but all in the delivery for me.
Yeah, and it was Horvat's delivery into the box, wasn't it? Yeah, with the corner.
Yeah, hell of a cross. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom, Vitek did his stuff, didn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. I think he caused pandemonium in their box. And I thought towards like the final 10 minutes of that game, there was a bit of a, I don't know, it felt like there was a bit of a mentality shift in the team where they were really trying to actually go in, get a goal. And obviously that was epitomised by the fact that Vitek came up for a corner, because has he come up for many corners before at all this season? I can't remember if he's done one yet.
Sure.
It was good to see.
Yeah, Les, the team togetherness, we talked about it right at the start of the pod, but he meant it when that header went in, and I was relieved as much as anything else, because I do think we were worthy of a point for our spirit. Never mind the fact that Borough missed a few and Vitek did some good saves, but great to see it hit the back of the net with power, wasn't it?
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of. Do you remember Lechkov in the '94 World Cup for Bulgaria against the Germans, when the guys whipped it from the right-hand side, and I don't know, is it vertical or horizontal? I don't know the difference between the two. When you're like that, what's that called? Is it vertical?
Horizontal.
Yeah. I mean, the power on it. Vitek obviously disrupted play and took one of the guys with him. Yeah, and when you look at the celebrations, that's not a team of people who've got one foot out the door or ready for the beach. There was a lot of very committed, delighted players who clearly deeply care about.
Use that term. I might use it in the headline when I post this on the forum, the recording, but they were not on the beach with that level of effort and commitment. They were going looking for the winner. So, and it was in the 95th minute. I had a quick look at Middlesbrough forum, and they were saying, "Oh, if they hadn't wasted time, we wouldn't have played those 5 minutes, and then they wouldn't have got the equaliser." But it is what it is. Right. Anyway, so here we go. 38 games played, 51 points, 9 points adrift of the playoffs. You can forget that. We'd have to win 8 out of 8 to even be in with a shout now. Ain't going to happen. Bottom 4, bottom 3, Oxford, 39 points. They ain't going to catch us. Worst case scenario for me is that if you look at the little group, there's a gap of 6 points between Blackburn in 19th and Charlton in 18th. Adam, some people are saying that if we'd have lost that and they might have won 4-0, Uber for Struber. I mean, Mr. Lansdowne flew in to watch the game. What's the problem? How are we going to get out of this spiral? What needs to change?
Well, a lot needs to change in the summer. I think it's going to be an absolutely huge summer for us, because particularly if Struber wants to carry on playing with a back three, you look at what we've got with the players coming into the last year of their contract. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to that side, and Lansdowne's going to need to put his money in his pocket. Hand in his pocket and invest some money if he wants us to be at the top end of the table and challenge. You can't stagnate. There's all the clubs, and I think we knew last season, finishing with a low points tally to sneak into the playoffs. All the sides below us, Borough being the prime example, Hull, Preston, they weren't all going to stand still. They were going to try and spend money. I know Preston had tailed off with us, but yeah, major investment is needed, Dave. And obviously, for me, I would love new investment and for Lansdowne to sell up and leave, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. But if he's staying here, he's got to change what he's doing and how he's running the club and hire the best in class. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will be rinse and repeat.
Yeah, Tom Struber has been talking about investment. Lee Church has said here, I fear that had we lost, Steve Lansdowne already had Struber's P45 waiting for him. I mean, Struber is not backward in coming forward in saying what needs to be done, but this is as big a summer as we've ever had. If you look at the players who are out of contract next summer, the loans that are going back, for every good recruitment signing, and I'll put Adam Randall as classic case in point. Yeah, but the 3 that Struber's been involved in, nobody's got any arguments about them. But Randall, for every Randall, there's a Sinclair Armstrong, a Fale Mayulu, a Daniel Burzorg, and I'm going to say a George Earthy. Yeah, something's got to give, hasn't it?
You'd like to think so, right? I worry that the only thing that's got to give is the club being sold to a new owner, really, because I think, we've done a number of years of this now. Yeah, the key question for me, and I guess it's for the whole fan base really, is do you have faith in the people that are currently in charge to deliver what we need them to do in the summer? And I think based on January, the answer is probably no. So yeah, as Adam says, to me, the buck stops with the owner, right? He sets the direction for everything, and he does it by his actions in terms of the players we bring in and the money that he spends and the people that he hires to make the big footballing decisions, right? And I think you've every right to be critical of what he's done in recent years with all of that.
Yeah, Les, harsh to be critical of a man that's invested almost £300 million in this football club?
Well, no, I don't think it is harsh, because the fact is he isn't putting the money in that's needed for us to challenge for promotion, and that means we get left behind. I haven't got an issue with us being left behind by the likes of Wrexham and Birmingham, who obviously have quite unique financial models, which means they can spend 8 million on Nathan Broadhead. I haven't got an issue with that, but we shouldn't be being left behind by the likes of Millwall or Derby, who were in a dire financial situation less than a year and a half ago. And he needs to realise that if he wants us to achieve Premier League football, he needs to put the cash in, and he doesn't want to put the cash in, and he's not putting the cash in. And that's why I don't share this view about the recruitment team, because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. People say they know, but 99% of people don't know. If you look at our recruitment, I think our recruitment has been generally pretty good. Knight, Randall, Bird, Reese on a free, the 2 new signings in January. These are good signings. I appreciate that the likes of Mayulu and Armstrong haven't been, and you have every right, and we have the right to question Tinian on that. But I'd like to know things like, people say we should have got another centre back. Well, maybe Struber was asked, well, you got a choice, a centre back or a striker, or because that's all the money we've got. You can't have both. And he might have said, well, I want Bergzog. Bergzog's my new striker. He's my man. That's what he said. So is it Struber who dictated where the money went? Is it Tinian coming up with some good, some not so good? It comes back to the ownership because they're the ones who are putting the cash in. And I don't think the recruitment team are given, you're not given an easy job when you're not giving them a huge amount of cash to work with.
No, that's a very reasoned argument for the supportive of the recruitment team. Adam, do you concur with what Les is saying? Because, if you're shopping, if you've only got so much to spend, and I think Lansdown's gone from putting 20 million quid dipping into his pocket for 20 million quid. I think Lansdown is saying, well, I'm going to put in 10 million quid to cover the losses, looking at Millwall's accounts before any player sales. That seems to be the going rate for a championship club without Premier League parachute payments, without the unique models of Birmingham or Wrexham. 10 million a year. And he's saying, right, I'm going to fund it, but anything beyond that, that's how it is. But then at what point do you go for it? And do you see Lansdown selling Adam? But then even when he does, but a few little things weren't quite right for me personally, so we all have to suffer.
Yeah, I mean, as Les says, we don't truly know what goes on. For me, I think there's the recruitment side are obviously working with limitations, but we don't have the best in class. We have made some good signings, so whilst we're quick to sort of slam the bad signings, it's important to recognise the good. For me, it's not necessarily the money or the lack of investment that doesn't help, but there doesn't seem any strategy. There's no contingency plans. We don't seem to have any sort of real structure in our dealings, in which surely has to play a part in why we're getting these mixed results with players. I mean, take Ayler, for example. He comes in on the last day of the window. Even with Viner, we needed a centre half, but all the money has gone on Ayler. It doesn't make any sense to me, while Struber's been pretty much banging on about strikers since the day he got through the door. And I think with recruitment, and this is where I would dispute what Les says, it goes into more than just being given money and going to look at players. I mean, you take what Struber's come out and said about Bergzog, for instance, not being up to with how we're playing. He's a 10, he wanted a striker. I mean, surely part of the recruitment team's role is to identify players that play to or know how we play in that system and can hit the ground running. It doesn't, you take Ayler and Horvat, for me, they have done. It just seems out of kilter. Yes, Lansdown does need to put in more money. I don't think he will sell. I'm not sure he's the offers he's getting anywhere near the money he wants for it. What those little things are that he's not happy with that are important to him, who knows? There's lots of speculation around it, but I think I'm ready for a change now.
Yeah. Okay, Tom, I think you've got to shoot away from us now. Yes, is that right? Yeah.
I think it's Les.
I'm off.
What's Les? You've got to shoot, Les. Les, you've got to shoot, right? Quick one, Les. Win against West Brom next Saturday going into the international break?
You'd hope so, but our home form hasn't been great, and West Brom got a good result yesterday, so they'll be on the up. I think it'll be a tough game, but yeah, why not?
Why not? All right, Les, we'll say goodbye to you now. Thanks for your contribution today. That's really good. Right, guys, we can carry on talking for a few more minutes. I've got to get out of Bristol Airport, pick up my stepdaughter very, very soon. The next 3 games, I know there's an international break, but to me, I think they will shape whether we're going to end up in that dreaded 18th position, which is the one currently occupied by Charlton, or maybe an improvement on where we are now. Because the next 3 games, it is West Brom at home, Charlton away, Sheffield United at home. Now, look at where Sheffield United are. They're right level with us. They lost their first 6 games of the season. We've said this last week, 12 points. First 12 games, 22 points. The next 26 games, 28 points. It's relegation form. What's an acceptable position, points tally now, Tom, for you? Because the season's gone. We're not going down. We're not going up. They're dead rubbers. But it's all about playing for pride now, isn't it?
What would I take? I'd like to win 2 or 3 games before the season is over. That'd be quite nice, I'll be honest. Especially after the Leicester game. I was wondering if we were going to win a game for the rest of the season, to be
Yeah.
honest. And, as Les correctly said, West Brom have got, I think there's more on that game for West Brom than there is on us. I would genuinely take 2 or 3 wins for the rest of the season, really, with the players we've got available. I don't think anyone's getting carried away after that good result we got against Borough, but I am still thinking we're going to struggle in the games we've got left with the players we've got available, unquestionably.
Yeah, Adam, what does success look like to you? I mean, if we're running at a point a game, just about it's 61. It's 10% less than last season, 10% better than last season. Would have got us into the playoffs on 74 points. We got was it 8 games left? We want to win half of them. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I'm with Tom with what he says. Really, with the players we've got and the lack of depth we've got for the run in, I think if we can muster say 3 wins from the remaining fixtures, I'd be really pleased with that. Given the circumstances, that wouldn't look like success to me. I'm sure it wouldn't to all of us, but if we can get anywhere near 60, I think we'd all take that. But it's at this point, it's going to be hard.
Season tickets are going on sale. If they haven't done already, they're going on sale imminently. Tom, how do you package? How do you package and get? We got, was it 16,000 season ticket holders? We got now. It's certainly 15. How do you pitch that to the fans and say, look, come and watch us play in the 5th most competitive league in Europe, the gateway to the Premier League, but we've no intention of getting there because we don't want to gamble the 15 to 20 million quid one year that it takes to do it. Your commercial director, our new chief executive, he's not a football man, he's not a finance man. How's he going to go out and sell this club to us, the fans?
Well, here's my view on it. I mean, I think, again, really worried about how this game would have gone in terms of Struber's position if he lost the game badly. And I look back to what happened in Nigel Pearson's when he was sacked. And I think the ownership I know a number of fans were critical of them, but I think they sort of got away with that one. But I think a lot of fans now, lucky to speak to quite a lot of people at Ashton Gate now before games and stuff. A lot of them see where the problem lies at the football club now. And I think the way that you really galvanise this fan base is a message from the owner. Like, the owner has to come out and give a plan to how we're going to improve from the position that we're in at the moment. Otherwise, I don't think anyone's going to be massively sold, to be honest. I think it all comes from him now, in my opinion.
But then he would say, he's already said, this football club has to be sustainable. So that's his plan.
There you go, then.
I remember
it's an impossible job, isn't it?
I remember, I'm going to find it. I'm going to look it up because it was the interview we did with Gary Marshall, June 2 years ago, coming up. Ian was doing it with me and he was asking most of the questions. And I chirped up and I said, so Gary, what really the strategy is that, stay in this division and hope one year the stars align and we get in by luck. And Gavin Marshall, sorry, he's no longer with Bristol Sport now. He's gone. But, is that an acceptable plan, Adam, is to be sustainable, be thankful for what you've got, Championship football, and we might get lucky one year?
Yeah, well, I think that's it. The comments that we should be grateful. I don't think anyone disputes the good that has been done, but I think we saw it last year. I know it's easy to say, and without being wise after the event, that was a perfect storm last year, getting into the playoffs, and we got completely found out. And touching on your point, Dave, sort of saying about what all the other clubs do in the division, gambling to a certain extent. I think you do have to gamble to an extent, but also I think there comes from, again, that structure that we don't have. Lansdowne hasn't got people in place to manage that, or I guess mitigate that sort of gamble. You have to spend money. No one's sort of expecting us to sign a player for 15 million or a striker, but there has to be a plan and there has to be money spent in the right areas, not just on the pitch. We have to invest accordingly. But to me, it's just that whole Lansdowne is his train set. He wants to do it his way. He's obviously, we know about his boy Tinian. I don't, he can put more money in, but I think we'll see a repeat of the mistakes that were done or that went before under Lee Johnson. Unless we've got the right people in the right places, I'm still not confident that throwing money at it alone is going to be enough. You have to have a plan. I mean, Les mentioned earlier that he hasn't got a problem with the likes of Wrexham or Birmingham. I haven't so much with Birmingham, but Wrexham have come from non-league. I have got a problem with that because that's a perfect example of a club, and the owners, they hire best in class. They're ruthless. They're desperate for success. They won't stop at it. They will get there before us because they've got a plan and they know what they're doing.
You can bet your life. You can bet your life, Adam, that if Sheffield Wednesday sort their house out down in League One, right, they will come back a stronger club because they're a big club. But they will sort themselves out financially, and and they could well bypass us again and go there. Okay, look, I think we're done for this week. We've had plenty to talk about. I don't think we've been massively critical. We're all fans at heart. We all want the best. We just want to see a little bit of boldness, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Adam. Is the ownership to come out and hold their hands up and say, look, this season hasn't been great. Yes, we have been unlucky with injuries, and we're paying the price for, some bad transfers that, haven't fulfilled. But that's the world we're in. Look at how much Liverpool spent in the summer, and they haven't exactly 400 million. You can get it wrong there, and they won the bloody Premier League last season, and they've been, by their standards, poor. Money doesn't buy success. I think Adam said it with organisation. Just one final question for both of you. It's probably a yes/no answer. If we have, Tom, will Gerhard Struber be leading us at the start of next season on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 that he will be, 1 that he won't.
7.5.
Okay, Adam, I'll ask you the same question.
I'm going to go 6.
Okay. Yeah, I think both of those answers suggest that they weren't yes/no answers because I asked for a number, but they were sitting on the fence in favour of Struber. I think a lot might depend on how we do in those last 8 games, and if we were to win half of them, if it went something like 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats, I think everybody would be happy. But if the spirit that was shown yesterday doesn't translate into results, particularly in the next 3 games, and I know there's an international break in the midst of that, then, I don't know. Mr. Lansdowne doesn't like criticism, and as Ian Gilmore's pointed out on the text feed, Lansdowne has said fans can ruin the club. Okay, that's us. We're fans. No, we want the best for Bristol City, 100%. This is my next international break. That'll be my 59th year. I sort of, in front of me, the very first programme of the very first game I went to, Bristol City versus Birmingham, March the 25th, 1967. That was my 11th birthday treat. And I've been hooked ever since. So, I'm a fan. I want the best for the club. But don't we all? Oh, Tom, you want to mention one more thing? Please do it.
I was just going to say, I think manager is really important to this conversation of where we go next season, really, because I think any decent operating football club would set a strategy at the top as to how they want to play football. They recruit a manager that plays that style of football, and they recruit a squad, a deep squad that all suit in the large way that style of football. That's how you do it. And I think you have to make your decision with the time you've got left to go this season, the time to prepare for the summer. I think you've got to make your decision on whether you stick with Struber now, and hopefully the club are doing that, and then you back him in the summer. And that's, the gegenpressing chaos football that Struber wants to play. That's the recruitment you do in the summer, and that's the idea you have to get us promoted next season. I think that's how you do it in my view.
Yeah. It's all about planning. Planning. And Michael Howes has just added he watched John Atyeo. So there, I wish I was a couple of years older, because then I might have seen the great man play. I met him a couple of times before he passed away. Can you believe that's nearly 33? He died in the summer of 93. He was a young man, but I never got to see John Atyeo play, and there's very limited, if any, football imagery of him in action. I think you can see him playing for England. Unbelievable that John Atyeo scored 4 goals in 6 appearances for England. And the FA didn't like Bristol City then. They don't like us now. But that's like Millwall. No one likes us. We don't care. But look, guys, Adam, great to have you on for the first time in a while. I'm going to be putting you in our first team squad for that. Tom is already an established stalwart in the squad. We've got to talk about getting you under contract. Only joking. But it's been a good
How
one.
big's your
Hope you
wage budget,
enjoyed it as
Dave?
much
That's the
as,
question.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. All the best, everyone. Goodbye. Till
Cheers,
next